Candace Fitzpatrick, born in Canada, as she grew up, remained a child in the eyes of her father William Fitzpatrick, who always said he loved her and tried to give her the best of everything: upbringing, affluence, and the best education. Although more details about her childhood are unknown. However, it is reliably known that something changed in her teenage years and the girl became addicted to the use of illegal substances. Her young, unformed life went downhill. No matter how William did not try to influence his daughter, she did not listen to him. She started disappearing late at night more and more often. For several days could not spend the night at the family home in Oshawa, in the Canadian province of Ontario. On all advice from his father to go to a rehabilitation center, responded with boorishness and rudeness. Then his little, adored girl decided to disappear for a few weeks. The family, who had been distressed before by their daughter's misbehavior, noticed that she was coming home more and more thin. But at any rate, she always came back until things changed in the spring of 2008. Candace, who was 18 at the time and living as a nomad, no longer started showing up at home or renewing contact with her family. After months of not hearing from her, William, her father, and other family members set up a Facebook page to talk about Candace's disappearance. William Fitzpatrick wrote that he missed her and that he loved her. But the answer the distraught father waited so long for never came. He said he searched for her in Oshawa and neighboring towns, but had no luck. The family didn't file an official report on her disappearance until 2010, but police also failed to find a single lead that could help in the search for Candace. Years went by. In 2017, another girl named Rory Hush, also 18 years old and with a lifestyle very similar to that of Candace Fitzpatrick, and also a resident of Oshawa, goes missing. The young girl grew up in a family of motorcyclists. Her grandfather was the founder of the famous illegal motorcycle club, established in 1950 in Toronto. The horrific world of addiction brought Rory to the brink, and her family members did the impossible to prove to her that they loved her and that her life was valuable to them. They wanted her to change herself and seek help at a rehab center. This was especially important to Rory at that particular time, as the young girl was pregnant. Although the circumstances were not the most favorable, her relatives decided to give her and her baby all the support they could. Shannon Dion, Rory's mother, made every effort to show her daughter how much she loved her, and the same was done by her Aunt Michelle Jenden, who loved her niece very much and was very worried about her. In fact, it was her aunt who persuaded Rory to buy a pregnancy test and suggested that the girl should make every effort to fight her addiction to illegal substances in order to carry and give birth to a healthy baby. On August 29, 2017, Rory was last seen, and on August 31st, her family reported their daughter's disappearance to police. Oshawa is a city located about 50 kilometers from Toronto, Canada. It has about 170,000 residents and has a large ancient lake with a harbor. It is a nice quiet place that locals often use for fishing. But the peace of the place was disturbed on Monday, September 11, 2017. A young boy was fishing along with his grandfather at the marina. At some point, they began to see an object that was going up and down in the water. They were sure that it was not a fish. When they managed to get a better look at what caught their attention, they realized that it was a human torso. Faced with this situation, the boy's grandfather decided to call the emergency number immediately. Police arrived at the Oshawa harbor and confirmed the find, stating that it was the torso of a woman. The remains were moved so that a forensic team could conduct tests that would help identify the victim and how she died. However, with so little material to examine, the experts were unable to determine the cause of death or learn the victim's identity. They were also unable to find any leads regarding her killer. The only thing that was clear to the police was that the woman had been murdered, dismembered, and thrown into the lake. As of late November 10, 2017, it was announced that the torso found belonged to Roria, who went missing in August that year. Shannon, her mother, stated that Roria was much loved by her family and was a very kind person, but added that the last few years had been very difficult as the girl was addicted to illegal drugs and also left home for long periods of time. However, according to her mother, Roria has been trying to get rid of her addiction. There are actually two theories regarding the report of her disappearance. Some claim that it was reported by her family, while others say it was one of Roria's friends. On December 29, 2017, the story took a completely unexpected turn. A certain family who lived on the first floor of a house located in Oshawa, just outside the city center, had been experiencing breakdowns and clogs in the sewage system in their home for some time. Determined to deal with the problem, they contacted a plumber named Sean, who showed up a few hours later. He immediately noticed that there was a very peculiar odor in the pipes. He spent quite some time trying to deal with the clog in the pipes but couldn't accomplish anything. So he asked to go up to another floor to take a look. It might be more convenient to clean from above, or at least to figure out the origin of the clog. A tenant at the top of the building named Adam Strong allowed him to enter. And the first thing that caught the plumber's eye was the lack of a toilet in the bathroom, which prompted him to check the plumbing in the kitchen. As the plumber began to untwist and clean the pipes, he noticed something coming out of the bends of the pipes. It looked a lot like meat, and the odor was just unbearable. While all this was going on, Adam, who lives in the apartment, was very agitated and paced back and forth across the room. Faced with an extraordinary situation, the plumber Sean called his boss, who decided to come to the scene. But before doing so, he notified the police about the strange occurrence. They both, the plumber and his boss, waited for the police outside Adam's apartment. At 8 p.m., an officer arrived and they showed him the bag of contents they had retrieved from the sewer. The officer immediately called for backup. Upon arrival, the officers knocked on Adam's door, who, upon opening the door, uttered, "Here I got caught." He acknowledged the human remains and, pointing to the refrigerator, stated that there were large chunks in his freezer. When officers inspected his residence, they noticed that there were blood spatters on the ceiling and walls. The freezer, which was of considerable size, contained human remains in garbage bags. Upon examination, forensic scientists found Adam's biological material on the body remains. With all this evidence incriminating him, Adam was immediately arrested. Up until that point, the man in his early 50s had never come to the attention of the police. He was an antisocial subject about whom very little was known. Adam did not have a regular place of employment. He occasionally performed security duties on a movie set. He had been fired twice from his position as a gas station attendant. He loved to ride his boat on the lake and also enjoyed scuba diving. His other great passion was looking at obscene photos and watching illegal movies with the same content. Adam did not have much luck with women. His ex-girlfriend cheated on him and moved in with a new boyfriend. However, he soon had another woman who got close to him and then dumped him. Sometime later, she later said that it was no accident that women were dumping Adam. It was all about the behavior of the man himself, who behaved very insulting, rude, and could use force and anger and sometimes start strangling. His carelessness in his appearance was obvious. Not to mention his tendency to live in filth. It was learned that he had problems with his landlord because of the poor condition of the house he had lived in for 14 years. The condition of the house needed repairs, and the accumulation of mussar was due to years of neglected cleaning. Investigators examined DNA samples and determined that the disheveled body belonged to Rory. But that wasn't enough for them. They had to find out the reason for such cruelty. But when questioned, the defendant showed no sympathy. His first statements were that he was embarrassed by the state of the sewer system because if it had worked better, he would not have been caught. When dealing with investigators, Adam always appeared cold and calculating. He even went so far as to ask to turn on the TV in his cell, but showed no desire to help the investigators uncover what had happened. Adam was resentful of people's lives because no one had paid any attention to the man throughout his conscious years. At one point, Adam even blamed his problems on his lousy childhood. How trivial. The detective showed him a picture of a murdered young woman and asked if he felt any sympathy for her. But the Furno man said he didn't know her. The indifference with which Adam regarded his heinous deeds came as a deep shock to the investigators and the people of Pacific Township. And soon they would learn of more horrific things to come. In July 2018, 7 months after Adam's arrest, agents who had been relentlessly investigating around the strange subject discovered more DNA in his home. Blood was found on a large carving knife that belonged to Adam. After careful analysis, Experts were able to determine that the blood belonged to 18-year-old Candace Fitzpatrick, who went missing in the spring of 2008, and who we talked about at the beginning of this video. Despite the fact that she was murdered years ago, Candace became the second victim of Adams to be recognized. There were no remains of her body, just blood samples. But investigators concluded that she was also dismembered after the murder, as was Rory. Both Candace and Rory were young girls in situations of social instability, using illegal substances, not sleeping at home, and sometimes engaging in sex work. It was this vulnerable situation that researchers believe Adam used to select his victims. In September 2020, the trial against Adam began, and he displayed his entire repertoire of inappropriate behavior during the hearing. Sometimes he laughed loudly, and other times he was reluctant to leave his cell to face the court. He was an utterly apathetic and sinister creature. 5 women came forward as witnesses and stated that they had been victims of abuse by the accused. Additional details were revealed at the trial. For example, Rory had 2 skull fractures, although experts were unable to determine whether these occurred before or after her death. As for how the victims died, the theory put forward by the experts was that the fatal attacks occurred during sexual intercourse. They also thought that Adam probably kept them in his home for some time before killing them. Adam's cell phone geolocation was also introduced into evidence, which showed that he was near the lake where Rory's torso was found on September 4th. Adam's defense wanted to put forward the theory that Rory died of an overdose and that in panic over the situation, Adam tried to dispose of the body. But this argument was completely rejected by the court. As of the end of March 2021, he was found guilty of first-degree murder of Rory and involuntary manslaughter of Candace. As in the latter case, no body was found, nor any or additional evidence. Adam Strong received a life sentence without parole for 25 years for the first-degree murder of Rory Hash. He also received an additional 18 years in prison on top. After an afternoon sentencing hearing, Judge Joseph DeLuca laid out his reasons in Oshawa Court. He described the attacker as a dangerous predator who not only destroyed 2 vulnerable people, but also their loved ones. The judge also ordered that Adam Strong's DNA be placed on the sex offender registry and that he have no contact with the victims' families. The judge addressed the man with harsh words. He told him that Adam would probably never be able to feel the harm he had caused, but thanks to the conviction he would remain an invisible being who would never be seen in public again. He predicted to him that in time he would be forgotten, perhaps not by the families of the victims, but by all other citizens, making Adam neither famous nor infamous. He would be a nobody. Adam listened hard, breathing behind his mask. He would not be eligible for parole until December 29, 2042. Relatives of the victims said they were relieved that this monster would not be on the streets and would no longer be a part of their days or their lives. They hoped to find some peace after getting justice for Rory and Candace. A new unexpected twist in the case came after the man had already started serving his sentence in prison. Candace's body was discovered in November 2021, according to Canadian Global News, when Adam agreed to take investigators to the site where he buried the girl. However, since her remains were discovered after the man was convicted, the charges could not be changed. Another fact that brought Adam back to the attention of the police and media was the discovery of additional clothing in the home where the man lived. In July 2022, roofing work was being carried out at the convicted murderer's former home in Oshawa, and the forensic unit of the Durham Regional Police was again called in. It was initially speculated that it could be the 3rd victim's belongings, but this was later ruled out by experts, and in the end, the clothes found had no value as evidence. Friends, thanks for watching. I recommend you to watch other true crime stories. Click right now, and also don't forget the bell and subscribe to my channel.